In this video, I'll share with you how I design all my Lutron homeworks projects that have been specified with DALI light fittings. Let's do it. DALI stands for Digital Addressable Lighting Interface. It will be too long here to review all the details of the DALI communication protocol. Today, we'll just cover the main features so we can design our Lutron homework system quickly and efficiently. Let's start with this light fitting here, for example. It could be a downlight, a LED strip, or even a pendant. When the lighting design floor plan shows that the load type for a light fitting is DALI, it means that that fitting will have a DALI driver attached to it. This DALI driver will be mains powered on one side directly from the distribution panel, and on the other it will receive a digital signal, a DALI command actually, to set the dimming level of that fitting. DALI commands will come from what we call a DALI controller. And that DALI controller will be able to control up to 64 DALI drivers on what we call a DALI loop. 64 drivers per loop. It is important to note that the DALI controller does not power the light fittings. It is only here to communicate with the drivers on its DALI loop. And because the DALI drivers are permanently powered on their side, it will allow them to achieve a very stable low level of illumination, which is great. Now, let's say that the combination of one DALI driver with its light fitting will be represented by this new symbol here. And let's represent a single DALI loop with multiple DALI light fittings. There we go. The other great advantage with a DALI system is that without changing the electrical wiring of your installation, you can group the DALI fittings in what we call DALI zones, where all the fittings that belong to a single zone will dim to the same level, similar to a traditional lighting circuit. And you can group those DALI fittings exactly the way you want. 2 zones, 3 zones, 1 zone, etc. etc. And this is done via the programming of the DALI controller, and you can program up to 16 zones per DALI loop. We need to remember that the DALI zoning, as we call it, can only be set up, changed, or modified by the Lutron commissioning engineer. It is not something the end user will be able to change by himself. And also, if you need to control more than 16 lighting zones, you will have to add another DALI loop, even if you haven't reached the maximum of 64 DALI drivers on your first DALI loop. In this tutorial, we'll be using the Lutron DALI module as our DALI controller. But before we go any further, this video is sponsored by Adelux. Yes, that's right, this is us. Based in the UK, we've got over 16 years of experience with Lutron lighting control all over the world. We are specialized in high-end residential, where we design, supply, and program Lutron systems such as Lutron Homeworks, Lutron Ratu Select, and Lutron Blinds and Curtains. We work directly with end users, but also with architects and lighting designers, electrical contractors, and smart home AV specialists. So, if you too want to take your current lighting control project to the next level and be looked after by a reputable Lutron professional, feel free to get in touch with us now. Contact details in the comment section below. Okay, let's go back to our tutorial. On any DALI lighting control project, you can find yourself in one of those two situations. The first one, you could be in a situation where all the DALI zones for each DALI loop have already been established, and in this case, you will just have to follow the lighting design instructions and build your Lutron homework system around it. Simple. Or you could be in the second situation where the DALI zones have already been established by way of lighting circuits on your floor plan, or on your load schedule, and you will have to find out how many DALI loops in total, and therefore how many Lutron DALI controllers will be needed. In this very specific case, I will not wait, nor I will recommend for that DALI information to come from someone else, or to wait for the day of commissioning to find out. Over the years, I've designed, commissioned, and programmed hundreds of Lutron homework systems using DALI-like fittings. And whenever possible, I will provide all the DALI zoning information myself to the electrical contractor, so I can optimize the number of DALI loops needed on a project, provide accurate DALI wiring information to the electrical contractor, which, by the way, will match my Lutron design and my homeworks database, and this will also reduce the number of commissioning visits and therefore save on costs for the client. And this is how I do it. First, let's start with a lighting floor plan provided by the client or the lighting designer, clearly showing the name of the rooms as well as the lighting circuits with their unique IDs. Great, that's what we want. Looking at the legend here, we can see that the majority of light fittings used on that project are DALI, and others are mains dimmable. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is to enter all this information in my Lutron Homeworks database using the Lutron Designer software. From the Design tab here, I'll first create all the rooms used on my new project. There we go. Next, still on the Design tab, I'll select Loads from the drop-down list here to add all my lighting circuits. Let's start with this room here, the master bedroom for example. And let's add the first circuit, the pendant here, with the circuit ID E1. Looking at the legend, the pendant is a DALI load type. So in my database, I'll create pendant here. And in the load reference column here, add its circuit ID E1. And then from the drop-down list, in the load type column, select LED DALI load type. That was easy. My pendant is a single DALI zone made of one DALI driver, so it can be controlled independently from the other drivers that will end up being on the same DALI loop. Next, I'll add my circuit of downlighters with circuit ID E2. But I should really say my DALI zone of downlighters, right? As my downlights are also a DALI load type, and I have 6 of them on that zone. Now, what we should know is how many DALI drivers that zone is really using, right? As sometimes a single DALI driver can be used to control more than one fitting. Well, you could go and ask the lighting designer, the electrical contractor, or the lighting supplier how many DALI drivers are used per zone or per fitting type on your project. I found out over the year that daring asking that question can take me in a very long journey without necessarily getting me to a clear and final answer. So, in the early stage of the Lutron design phase, I'm going to assume, in this case here for example, that I have one DALI driver per downlight. And because I have up to 64 possible drivers per loop, I should have plenty of space to accommodate more drivers than necessary, especially on a residential project. So, back on my database, I'll add downlights with circuit ID E2 and load type DALI LED. Now, these here only represent one single DALI driver, and I'll potentially have 6 of them on this particular DALI zone. So, I'll update the ID of the first one here to E2-1, and then click on the plus sign here to add another driver, which I'll call E2-2. Then another one, E2-3, then E2-4, E2-5, and E2-6. Voila! And in case I've added more DALI driver than what will be actually installed on site, I will delete any extras once I finish commissioning the system. Then I'll add the LED strip here, E3, also a DALI load, and in the early stage of design, I generally add one DALI driver per LED strip segment. Then I'll add the wall light here next to the bed, both wall lights have a different zone ID, which means they need to be controlled separately, the right hand and the left hand side of the bed, and therefore they will use two separate DALI zones. Next, I have E6, which is a DALI zone of low level light fitting, some sort of night light. They're very cool. And from experience, I think they'll most likely be controlled from a single DALI driver, as most of the time, those have a very low wattage. And same thing for the artwork light fittings, DALI zone E7 and E8, which most likely will use a single DALI driver per set for the same reason. There we go. I've finished adding all my DALI zones in the master bedroom. So here, I have a total of 8 DALI zones with potentially a total of 13 DALI loads, 13 DALI drivers. Okay, well, as you can anticipate, I will now do exactly the same thing for all the other rooms in my project. Create all my DALI zones with their respective DALI drivers. And also all my main dimmable circuits, as I have a few of them on this project. And as you can see, I can do that pretty quickly. Okay, so once I finish adding all my lighting circuits on my entire project, still on the Design tab, I'll select Equipment from the drop-down list here. This is where I will build my Lutron panels with my Lutron modules, processors, etc. All my backroom equipment. At the beginning of my design process, I always like to start by adding a new room here, called Lutron panels. In there, I'll add the 8-module Lutron enclosure with RCBOs, which I will call Lutron Panel 1. Next, I'll click on the plus sign here with the label 1, and in the list of available Lutron general modules, I'll select the Lutron DALI module here with the reference LQSC-2DAL-D. The great thing about the Lutron general DALI module is that it can control 2 separate DALI loops from this connector here. So, can you imagine, as each loop can operate up to 16 DALI zones, this module on its own can control up to 32 DALI zones, which we can quickly say is the equivalent of a full panel with 8 mains dimmable modules that can only control up to 4 mains dimmable circuits each. All of that in one single module. That's one of the great advantages of using a DALI control system. Again here, we need to bear in mind that although the DALI module will be mains powered from this connector here, it will not power the DALI light fittings. As we said before, the DALI light fittings will have to be permanently powered directly from the distribution panel. Now, adding the DALI module in the panel will create this new tab here, which will allow me to navigate between the 2 DALI loops of the Lutron DALI module I've just added in position 1 in my panel. So, let's start with DALI 1 loop 1. And in the column that says ballast here, which can also refer to DALI driver, I'll click on the Assign button. From there, a new window opens that will list all my DALI zones and drivers I've just added in my database. And what I have to do now is to assign those zones in a meaningful way so it can be easy for the electrician to follow wiring instructions and make the installation of the DALI communication cable as smoothly as possible. For example, let's begin with our master bedroom here. And let's first start by adding the pendant to the loop by clicking on the Assign button next to it. Okay, once added, if I check now at the bottom of my panel, I can see that my DALI loop 1 uses 1 zone out of 16 and 1 DALI load out of 64, which was expected. Now, in the same way, I'm gonna add the master bedroom downlights. And I'm going to assign the entire zone as opposed to the individual loads here, as I need them to be all on the same DALI loop. There we go. And this time, I can see that my DALI loop uses 2 DALI zones, my pendant and my circuits of downlights, and a total of 7 DALI loads that belong to those 2 respective zones. Great! So now, as you guessed it, I will carry on with the remaining DALI zones in my master bedroom. Okay. So you see here, I still have plenty of room with regards of the number of DALI drivers or load I can add to this loop. However, I've already used half of the DALI zones available. Next, I'll add the zones that are in her dressing. Okay. I still have a bit more space, so I also try to fit the zones that are in his dressing. There we go. And I believe that for the time being, I'm gonna stop here. In the early stages of a Lutron homeworks project with DALI fittings, I will generally fill the DALI loops up to around 80%, which more or less represent 13 DALI zones, keeping at least 20% of spares, DALI zones and DALI loads for future use, as it is often required on the project specification, but also as it will add flexibility to the project. For example, if the client or the lighting designer wish to split or add new DALI zones at a later date, we better have some available spare DALI zones and loads on the existing DALI loops to accommodate those requests. And as you guessed it, I will do the same thing for DALI 1 Loop 2. And then adding new DALI modules as I need them to fit all the DALI zones in my project. You see, I can do that very fast. There we go. So if we quickly review what I've just done, we can see here that all my DALI loops are filled more or less in the same way, leaving a bit of space if needed later on my project. Great. Next, I will add some phase adaptive dimming modules in the same panel to accommodate the other mains dimming circuits I also have on that project. There we go. I will also add a Lutron Homeware's QSX processor with its power supply and a couple of wiring landing boards to optimize wiring of the other Lutron equipment like the keypads, the Lutron shades or interfaces back to the processor. Okay, so from here, the great thing with the Lutron Designer software is that I can generate reports, like the panel wiring report, which will give us a graphic view of where to connect our DALI zones on the panel connectors that matches the corresponding DALI module, as you can see here. And also the wiring report, which will list where all the loads need to be connected on the Lutron modules. This report works very well when it comes to the traditional mains dimming or switching modules, as you can see here. But to me, seems a bit overload when it comes to the DALI loops. So, to make things easier and clearer for my client and the electrical contractor, I will create a new drawing called DALI Zoning, which will also be part of my Lutron design package alongside the Lutron reports. I will use the lighting floor plan provided earlier, and on there I will graphically represent all my DALI loops. So, in a master bedroom for example, I will color this area including hers and his dressing, as I previously managed to add all the DALI zones of those rooms on the very same DALI loop. And this will communicate to the electrical contractor that all the DALI zones in that colored area will be on the same loop, which, by the way, I will call 01.01 to refer to my Lutron DALI Module 1, Loop 1. You see, that's easy, right? And I will do the same for all the others DALI loops. I will color their respective areas exactly as I've done it earlier in the Lutron Designer software. 01.02 to refer to my Lutron DALI Module 1, Loop 2, 02.01 for DALI Module 2, Loop 1, 02.02, DALI Module 2, Loop 2, so on and so forth for all the other loops. Hence, making sure the DALI wiring match exactly my Lutron Homeworks database, which will save a massive amount of time during the commissioning phase and will reduce costs for my clients. Very good. And as you can see, every DALI loop in my project controls a group of adjacent rooms, which will also optimize the wiring of the DALI light fittings. Great.
Now, let's do a quick overview of all the other design documents I will include on all my Lutron Homeworks project.
So next, I will create another drawing called Lutron Keypad Layout that will show all my Lutron keypad positions with their unique ID reference, showing how they need to be wired to one another back to the Lutron processor position shown by the star sign here. Back to the Lutron Designer software, under controls here, I will add all those keypads with a brief description and their IDs. Very good. Then I will go to the link assignment screen here, where I will assign all the Lutron equipment I've just created between the two links of my Homeworks processor. At this point, I will go to Report and then Bill of Materials to generate what I like to call my shopping list, which will include all the Lutron equipment I need on a project. That is very convenient. And then I will go to the Programming tab here to pre-program all my keypad buttons and add some basic engraving, which will also save a lot of time during the commissioning phase. And I will complete this step by generating the engraving report here, which will be used as a reference document between the end user and myself until finalized and engraved buttons ordered. All of those steps here are explained in great details in one of my previous Lutron Homeworks design tutorial, and you can find the link in the comment section below. One last thing though, as part of my Lutron design package, I will also create a new drawing called Lutron System Layout, where I will represent my Lutron panel with my modules here, showing where all the DALI zones of all the DALI loops need to come back to. Also highlighting the fact that for wiring details, we must refer back to the wiring and panel wiring reports, but also to the DALI Zoning drawing we generated earlier. Then I will show where all my keypad loops are coming back to on my processor links. There you go, a quick overview of the entire Lutron Homework system on a single page that will help everyone involved on that project. Very good.
Voila, there you have it. How to design a Lutron Homeworks project that has been specified with DALI light fittings. I hope you find this video useful, and if you have any questions with regards of Lutron Homeworks system design, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Adelux YouTube channel so you can be updated when the next video is released. Thank you very much, good luck, and talk to you again on the next tutorial.